For more, I'm joined by Angela Rye, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large for The Bulwark. And, you know, Angie, the thing that's so funny about it is that these guys are throwing out statements that you can, like, fact-check on Twitter. I mean, Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz both voted for the previous version, the CARES Act, which also allowed people who are in prison to get checks, which allowed these things are just extensions of the same stuff. They're just adding more money. I wonder if the sort of benefit they get by saying those words and then having that repeated on social media and on conservative media, is that enough to justify being able to be so easily fact-checked, including maybe in ads?
You know, Joy, I would love to understand what makes these people get on the Senate floor, or for some of the House members too, go to the House floor after taking an oath and just blatantly lying to the American people for, you know, a few pats on the back by randoms who don't have any allegiance to facts whatsoever. I think what's so interesting is in Ted Cruz's remarks, he of course talks about undocumented folks getting stimulus checks, but he must not know the process. And perhaps, Joy, it goes back to the very idea of Cancun. You know, he's so out of touch that he doesn't realize you actually have to have a Social Security number to get a stimulus check. Like, let's just start there. And I think, to your point, it could be easily fact-checked on Twitter. But most importantly, what I would love to see is someone with a moral fiber, some type of conscience representing the American people and not bogus claims for the right.
Yeah, and, you know, Charlie, the thing about it is they're also not going to get a pat on the back from the man they want it from the most. The person they want to cuddle them that's in Florida is not going to cuddle them because he doesn't care about the Republican Party. And the people in the party who you'd think would want to stand and fight for it are like, I'd rather quit. I'd rather get out of the Senate and retire than stay and try to fight for the integrity of my party. The party's being left for the Ted Cruzes and the Tom Cottons. Look at these five who are leaving. Toomey's like, I'm done. I did my Club for Growth thing. I got my Senate money. I got my tax cut. I'm rich. Got my tax cut. I'm out. Richard Burr, I'm out. Rob Portman, Richard Shelby, Roy Blunt. Like, these are like the old school Republicans. They're not fighting for the integrity of the party. They're just like, let the Trumpies have it. So is that what's going to happen? Are we just going to basically have John Birch Society 2.0?
Well, you're going to get a more Trumpy United States Senate if the Democrats don't pick up those seats. Yeah, because what you're seeing is that the old school senators, you know, came there to legislate, to debate, to legislate, to compromise. And what you're seeing now is basically the Senate is dominated, the Senate Republicans are dominated by the people who want the soundbite. You know, why does Ted Cruz say the things that he says? Because he knows that that's going to be played on Fox News. That's the meme. That is the narrative that's going to play in conservative media. And the fact check won't ever really catch up with the fact, you know, that he's, you know, waving that bloody shirt. And it is sort of, you know, Trump 2.0. You know, you have a $1.9 trillion piece of legislation, and they're focusing on the bogus claim that illegal aliens will get it. Look, I think that one of the big questions is, how is this going to be different from 2009? Republicans just think that by voting no, that they're going to be able to, you know, run against this big spending package and have big wins in the midterm elections. I think the big difference is, number one, Joe Biden knows he's got to sell it. He's got to be out there aggressively explaining what's in the package. And number two, unlike, say, Obamacare, the benefits are going to be showing up in people's bank accounts within the next few weeks. They're not going to have to wait until after the election to see what's in this bill. So I think that this is a very different political situation, and yet the Ted Cruzes of the world keep pretending it's 2009 all over again.
Well, you know, and Angela, if you know, people like Masha Gessen have been talking about the fact that, you know, the Republican Party is devolving into this sort of, you know, kind of crypto-fascist entity that basically is just like everything the ruling party is doing is bad, 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 bad. We're just going to run against it. And it doesn't matter even if we agree with the underlying stuff. And the idea is to just degrade people's trust in government at all and their faith in government at all. And I wonder, for the Democrats, if they're looking at a midterm where Republicans are just going to be screaming about undocumented people and trying to do the brown scare and the black scare again, that criminals are getting it, and you know what they mean when they say criminals, right? That they're going to do the racism, they're just going to pretend the bill doesn't exist as the check in your hand. I wonder if you feel like Democrats are ready for that, because not even all the Democrats could agree on $15 an hour. They couldn't even get their own people to pass probably the most powerful thing that would reduce poverty, which would be $15. They couldn't even get that to happen. So I wonder if you sense that the Democrats are ready for what they're about to face.
You know, Joy, is such a profound point, and we, talk about this often, both privately and publicly, about the idea of a big tent and what it means, the types of compromises that you have to reach. There are some things that should just be based on a moral compass. And you would think, right, that Republicans would be in lockstep with trying to really provide the American people relief. But as you just said, when we started the show, you have Pat Toomey on. You listed him as a Republican who's ready to retire. But this is somebody who just was talking about Black farmers receiving reparations as if he's never heard of the Pickford settlement, right? There are all these things that make sense to ensure that people are finally made whole. And who cares if it's as a result of a pandemic or if it's as a result of another Black man or woman being killed by the police, or if it's because economically people are suffering. We just need to do the right thing. To the point, if the Democrats can't find the courage, and if Republicans can't find the courage to reach across the aisle and do the right thing because people are suffering, I think it's more than bipartisanship that is in harm's way. It is literally the very livelihood of so many Americans that don't care who was the reason that got things across the finish line. But I will tell you, thank God for a Raphael Warnock and for a John Ossoff who knew that this particular measure around Black farmers needed to go Cory Booker, because when Joe Manchin is in the way of another Joe, a Joe Biden, at least those two are there. Thank God for special elections.
Oh, amen. I mean, the funny thing about it, though, is, Charlie, I don't think that these Republicans think they understand Trump the way they think they do, right? I mean, Lindsey Graham was on Axios being like, Trump's got some bad points, but he's going to grow the party. I don't know if they understand that the way that Donald Trump pulled that off, A, because he was famous, so he got away with a lot of stuff, but B, he was the checks guy. He wasn't the tell me how I can justify sending you checks guy. He sent farmers checks sight unseen. You a farmer? You want some money? Here's some money. Vote for me. You want some money in the stimulus? Take all the money. He understood that checks are good politics. But Donald Trump wasn't about fiscal responsibility. He was like, spend all the money. Send it to all the airlines. Send it to the people who have cruise ships. Send everybody money. And that to buy their votes. So I don't understand even what they think they're doing Trumpism, but they're not.
No, they don't quite get that. Remember when Donald Trump was trying to push for the $2,000 check right before the election and didn't get anywhere with all of that. I always think it's interesting that if you got a Republican in the room and say, okay, you keep talking about socialism, define socialism. And when Donald Trump was sending out all of those checks to the farmers, does that qualify as socialism? I would like a definition. But you mentioned that interview with Lindsey Graham where he's talking about the magic of Donald Trump. And he says he's a combination of Jesse Helms, Ronald Reagan, and P.T. Barnum, which was a weird thing to say because Jesse Helms, of course, is a pro-segregationist, senator who had actually filibustered the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. P.T. Barnum was known as the Prince of Humbug. And then, of course, there's Ronald Reagan. And it's like, what concoction are you thinking of there that you're comparing Donald Trump to one of the most notorious bigots in American politics, a circus ringleader, and then Ronald Reagan? And yet somehow, what Lindsey Graham thinks there's some magic in all of that? No, I don't think that he quite gets it.
Or he does get it, and he was being accurate.
Well, maybe he was. I was actually surprised he didn't throw in George Wallace at a certain point.
He probably at the last second said, "Let me leave off Wallace. Let me leave off Wallace so that Donald Trump doesn't figure out what I'm saying because he's blinking through the TV. He knows exactly what he's saying. He's a Southern senator."
But why does he think it's magic?
Because it's because it is for a certain part of his base. We could go on like this for hours because I'm telling you, I think he knows exactly what he's saying. I think Angela agrees with me. Angela Rye, Charlie Sykes, thank y'all both very much. Up next on the